Okay, we're good.
All right. So, good morning and welcome to this February 5th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Sanitary Commissioners. If you'd all please rise and recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no excused absences today. All sanitary commissioners are present. At this time, we will allow for public comment. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you would line up in an orderly fashion at the podium, we'll get started as soon as I find my timer. If you would, please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
My name is Mark Abril. I'm the attorney for the Liberty Regional Waste District out in Selma area. We have about someplace between 1,600 and 1,700 customers, and we have a treatment contract with Muncie Sanitary District to treat all of our effluent that comes in. And we've had a couple of issues, and the first thing I want to do is kind of apologize to this board. You guys, none of you were on the board when this contract went into effect. And so, you know, I recognize that you wouldn't really be personally familiar with this one way or the other, but the way that our contract is set up, it requires that if you guys are going to raise our rates, well, first of all, it doesn't require a cost of service study, which is what you guys have had to have done. All it really requires is you take your year-end numbers, you have a spreadsheet that Baker Tilly originally prepared, and we then contributed to it. Dean Rogers at Baker Tilly was the one who was working on it at that point in time. But basically, you take your year-end numbers and you plug it into this spreadsheet, and it comes up, it spits out a number. And whatever that number is, if it's less than 20%, once you give us less than a 20% increase, then you have to give us 60 days notice for when it's going to kick in. So you send us a letter. You don't have to go through any rate hearing. You don't have to do anything like that. You just send us a letter saying, hey, effective this date, this is when this new rate, and you provide us with the spreadsheet, you know, what your information was and that kind of thing, and we have the right then to check it out. And the reason for that notice is because, just like you, we have to raise the rates on our customers. And we have to go through the same process. We have to advertise it. We have to have a public hearing before we adopt any of the rates. And so for anything under 20%, it is just a 60-day notice. Anything over 20% is a 120-day notice. And so at that point, you provide us with the information. If it's over 20%, then generally what we probably would do is have our people, our rate consultant, check out those numbers, make sure that, you know, there's not anything different. And let me kind of explain what this all came about for. This is as a result of an 8-year dispute that started in 2012 and turned into litigation in 2014, and then ultimately resulted in this contract in 2020. And part of what the essence of what this contract was, and the reason I'm telling you this, is because it uses actual numbers. We negotiated a higher rate that we pay for the treatment plant expense because we didn't want any of the potential problems associated with discretionary things. And that's why I'm asking, what's that?
Mr. Averill, sorry to interrupt you. Your 3 minutes is up. What I would recommend is you speak with our general counsel, Mr. Ritz.
I have, but I do have one request to the board. I'd request that you delay, we got a new bill, and I'd request that you delay implementation of that for 120 days, because we just got the information like 3 days ago, or not 3 days ago, like the last few days of January.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Alan Kornblau. I'm the Muncie Public Library Director, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak. Our bill last month more than tripled the previous month. It was an extra over $900 that we had to pay in wastewater costs. It will come out to about $11,000 a year in extra cost that we didn't budget. So we would appreciate any consideration on our wastewater bill. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any others wishing to make comment today?
Hi, my name's Robert Harmon, and I've had a business downtown for 17 years. And I was sideswiped by this thing too. I guess I didn't pay enough attention to you guys raising the rates, whoever raised them. But I get my water bill and I get my sewage bill, and I always go back and look through and make sure they're matching up. Well, I get this new one, it's $63, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I look at my other one, it's present reading 55, this other one present reading 55, total consumption nothing. It says zero, there's nothing on here. My other one said 1, and I know I use water because I've been open this whole entire time, but then I called and they said you have 0 consumption, so I'm just like wondering, I get online, then I try to look at the video, I try to see these rates rising over the different years you're going to raise them, and I'm like, did you raise it up so much? Because I'm only paying $23. I pay attention to how much water I use, how much trash I use. I mean, I've had hectic deals with the trash around downtown, but when you raise it, I know I'm using water, but there's nothing on there. So did you raise it to $62 and then, or $61, and then they just a flat fee now that you're charging me instead of actually charging me my water consumption? Because on my bill should reflect that. It always has, and now it doesn't. It went up $63. So I was thinking there was a leak. One time they had fiber optics come through the sidewalk there, and they clipped the water line in the sidewalk. So I didn't know when I get the water bill and the sewage bill, it's really high, and they resolved that. But on this one, there's nothing on this bill at all. So I had to come to find out this meeting was going on, and everybody's rate raised. Most of the businesses I've talked to, and I can see all these churches and everything, and I think like a 75% rise. My bill tripled, and that seems like really incredible for the amount of trash that I don't use, the amount of water that I don't use. And there was like no resolve in that. Even as a business, I'm not $11,000, but it's a $480 increase for me. But I don't see. What I see is a new building and mismanagement, and like you guys are saving up a Happy Day fund for whatever you decide to spend the money on. And I think it should be my bill should directly be influenced by how much water I waste or how much trash I put out, and it shouldn't be just one across the board, because you have Airbnbs all over the city, and they're in residential, so they get a ploy. If you can get your business labeled as a residential, you can run a business in there that's using more water than I am as a business, but I'm going to be charged because of that water usage too. It has to make sense. You just charge one group of people, not the other. Anyway, I'd like my bills to reflect my wastewater, if it's a wastewater treatment that, in trash. I would like it to be reflected in a bill that I receive, instead of just a blank bill that I have to call and figure out what's going on. I liked when I could come to this building and pay my bill and talk to the people here and they could answer my questions. Now I had no idea where to go, and I can't just come pay my bill. When I used to pay my bill in this thing out here out front, it would always be late, and I'd get a late fee. If I'd mail it to Fort Wayne, it would always be late, no matter what, my private check. So I started paying online, and there's a $2 service fee. Where can I just go just to pay my bill in person with cash? You got a new building, I should be able to go out to that building and pay it in cash too, I would think, like you used to be able to do in this building. Now you can't do that. And, you've made it hard for somebody to pay the bill. You've raised the increase. It doesn't even reflect in the bill that I received from you, and I can see that I think a lot of other people are upset about it too.
Thank you, sir. I would recommend you speak with Ms. Cox, who is the finance manager. You can still pay your bill in that corner. She's more than happy to. After the meeting, of course. Are there any others that wish to speak? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consideration of the January 22nd, 2025 board minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion in regards to those board minutes?
Motion approved.
Second it.
Have a motion, a second, to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing no nays, consideration of the board minutes is approved. We will move on to the register of claims. Today's claims total $1,230,712.12. Would anybody like to clarify or comment on the register of claims?
None for me, Mr. President.
Seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Register of Claims. All in favor, say aye.
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 Seeing none opposed, the Register of Claims is approved. We will move into the District Administrator update with Mr. Rick Conrad.
Good morning. Rick Conrad, District Administrator. Just a couple of updates for me. We've talked a lot last year about our levee tieback project where we're trying to realign the center line of protection for the levee. We've been working with the Corps to make sure we follow all of the legally required procedures through them to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. We've had quite a few different I'll say obstacles added to this in the past, and we are still awaiting that approval. However, recently we've got some pretty good momentum here, and I think I'm still cautiously optimistic we will be able to get that project finished on time, which will help the Kitzelman folks who are working on another project in the same area. But for anyone who was listening last year, at least we did want to give an update that we are still moving, still trying to meet all of those requirements from the Army Corps. And then a quick update too on the long-term control plan. This is the unfunded mandate from the federal government to separate our combined sewer overflows or at least mitigate them. Negotiations with IDEM are continuing. I still think those are optimistic as well. I think we've got a good opportunity to reduce the total cost of that project. IDEM has been fairly reasonable with us, I would say. In my opinion, I think everything's going fairly well. Don't have that approval yet, but we are still looking forward to it. I'm hoping within the next month we'll get that, and then we'll have a much better final idea of what our obligations will be to them. And again, just as a reminder, that's kind of one of the that is the big project driving our rate increases, is dealing with that long-term control plan. And then if there are any other questions about anything else going on in the district, I'd be happy to field them.
Mr. Conrad, what is the estimated cost for that long-term control plan compliance?
Currently, we are looking at $160 million left. That is on top of the $90 million we have already spent. That is if we get the approval for the project and the alternative plan as we have proposed. If we do not, we are looking at well over $300 million.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions or comments for Mr. Conrad?
I do not.
No.
Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Conrad. Up next, we have a department head update from Mr. Chuck Jones, the Director of the Bureau of Water Quality. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I just have a quick update on our recap of our year last year, some numbers we're working with, and some highlights of each department. So our laboratory, worked 365 days last year. We successfully hired a full-time lab analyst and a weekend intern. That's going great. They completed over 24,000 analyses. We added total nitrogen and are ready to add oil and grease to our testing portfolio. Oil and grease, there seems to be there's a shortage of hexane that we need to use for that test. So once the hexane's available, we'll be running oil and grease in-house as well. And our lab earned the IWEA Laboratory Excellence Award once again. Our surveillance section pulled over 900 river samples. They pulled approximately samples for approximately 1,200 analyses on the industries, and they observed and videoed a river otter that was confirmed and added to the DNR database. Our stormwater department has approximately 50 stormwater construction permits out, 72 inspection sites, and we responded to 8 incident responses, so complaints that we responded to for stormwater. Our fog program, we currently have over 300 permitted and inspected food establishments. It was a number that kind of, I didn't realize we had that many. Our biology section, we had a successful intern season over the summer. Our macro biologist, Sam Gradle, completed a 6-year Delaware County West Fork White River mussel survey, where he surveyed 31 miles of the White River all throughout the county and surveyed 53,765 mussels. Our fish crew sampled 60 sites, surveyed 55 species of fish, and 12,470 total fish. Of those fish, 47% sampled on the White River were considered intolerant to pollution, and 20% pollution tolerant. And our mussel building, mussel propagation facility, we transitioned into the building last year. We were able to complete numerous scientific experimentations of waters that we're using for propagation. We currently have over 1,800 mussels growing out at the facility of 2 species, one of which is the wavy rayed lamp mussel, which is a state special concern species. Current mussels are approximately a year, little plus or minus there, a year from being added to the river, and we expect increased numbers this year. Our education facility opened in June, and since that time in June, we have hosted 492 people from school groups, Cub Scouts, Ball State, Association of Lifelong Learners, and other groups. And we currently have successfully housed 25 species of native fish in the ed building. And so we still have them in there from June when we got started. So that's good. And if you guys have any questions, I can try my best to answer.
All right. We'll just go in order today. Mr. Clark, any questions, comments for Mr. Jones?
Yeah, Chuck, thanks. I've had a small group of kiddos that came through the education center. It was a really good tour. I recommend that anybody, and you mentioned lifelong learners too,
Yep.
adults, anyone that wants to learn more about what you're doing and keeping our river clean. You mentioned the restaurants, though. Is that something
It's
that you
food-
monitor their grease or
Food
byproduct?
establishments, yes. So it's anybody, who produces food. So you get churches in there, schools. And we monitor their interceptors, their grease traps, make sure that, they're not clogging up the sewers, which then leads to a backup, which leads to sewage to the river.
Okay, so is that something you do like annually, an inspection, or
Yes.
is there monitoring?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Mr. Overton?
Appreciate your good work, Chuck, in filling Rick's large shoes. So congratulations on your first year, and look forward to good things.
Thank you.
Mr. Selvey?
I don't have anything for Chuck.
Mr.
Thank
Moore?
you.
You guys do fantastic work there in the lab. Very proud of you guys, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
Thank you as always, Chuck. It's just important for basically the community to know that you're kind of our gut check on how good of a job our water pollution control facility and our stormwater maintenance and everything is basically being done. So you're really the quality control of our entire process. So that's an important role that you play, and the reports and testing are, one, mandated and required, but two, that, gives us confidence in saying that we're doing our job well. So thank you, Mr. Jones, and for your entire staff.
Thank you.
All right. Moving into old business, do any commissioners have any old business they would like to discuss?
No.
Seeing none,
Nope.
we will move into new business. Our first item of new business is a professional services contract renewal for Mr. John Barlow. Mr. Conrad will present.
Hello again. This is a renewal of a contract that we had originally signed last year with Mr. Barlow, our former district administrator. John had been at the plant for over 40 years, and he's got a wealth of knowledge out there, and it is becoming particularly important as we are looking for plant upgrades to help address our long-term control plan. So this contract basically gives us the ability to just call on him periodically, use his expertise, pick his brain, and get some valuable information to make sure that we're not letting all of that walk out the door. But again, this is a continuation of what we did last year. It's really as needed, very minimal usage, and has been extremely valuable. I know I've talked to Jason Ingram, our plant superintendent. This has been extremely valuable to us, so we hope we can continue it for at least one more year, and with your consideration, we will do that.
I'll chime in on that as well. I think the total spend for both of these contracts, so that's item 1 and 2 of new business, was less than $500 last year. The rates are not onerous by any means, and it's
Let me add, that was my typo. That is it was $5,000, but it was still a good bargain. But yes, I apologize that it was less than $5,000.
thank Mr. Conrad for correcting me, but still excellent value for 40 years of institutional knowledge, and just the ability to call on Mr. Barlow for plant issues is well worth it. So seeing that, are there any questions or comments for Mr. Conrad? If there are not, I will entertain a vote, or entertain a motion, excuse me.
Motion for approval of service renewal contract for Mr. John Barlow and Mr. Phil Reagan.
I will second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Seeing none opposed, renewals, the professional service contract renewal for Mr. John Barlow and Mr. Phil Reagan pass. Given that we combine those two items, we'll go on and move into release of retainage to Bowen contract, item 3, Ms. Dina Cox. Good morning, Dina.
Dina Cox, Financial Billing Manager. I'm just asking the board to approve the final retainage release to Bowen Engineering for the amount of $245,993.10. This is for the completion of the 2021 bond projects, which is for the CSO 13 and the McCullough Park Lift Station.
Very good. Do any commissioners have any questions for Ms. Cox? Seeing none, I will make a comment. So this is kind of the final step in all the work for this particular bond project. There are no other items out there currently, so this is kind of the end cap. All work has been completed and inspected by a third party, as well as accepted by our plant director. Jason's nodding that everything's good, so we'll consider that complete in his mind. So with that said, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, make a motion for the release of retainage for Bowen Engineering.
All right, so we got a motion to approve, if I'm correct, Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Second? Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Seeing none opposed, we will release the retainage. Thanks, Dina. All right, item number 4. This is introduction of resolution 2024-02, amending and fixing the schedule of sewer rates and charges to add nonprofit billing line with Mr. Overton. Mr. Overton, if you would please present.
Yes, as most of us are aware, we have an unfunded mandate from the EPA saying that we have to separate our sewage from the water runoff from the streets. And when it rains a lot, we end up having untreated sewage go into the river. And so the Environmental Protection Agency is telling us we have to separate that out and fix it. And the cost of this project, as Rick mentioned, is $250 million to $300 million. Now, to keep that in mind, Muncie has roughly 70,000 citizens. If you divide $250 million by 70,000, each person in the city of Muncie is responsible for over $3,500 in debt. If you end up doing $300 million divided by 70,000, now we've gone up over 4,000. So you think of a family of 4, and again, we serve some outside of the city, so let's go down a little bit, but let's say 3,000 of debt per person. A family of 4 is going to be paying $12,000 of this. And we have to borrow this money in bonds, which now we have compound interest working to increase the debt. So this is no small mandate from the federal government that we have no control over. And so we had to institute rate hikes, and that's not fun for anyone. And so we've gone to a base rate because at times we'll have somebody who has a rental house, but they're not renting at the moment. Therefore, the service is not being used, but the debt still has to be paid. And that's why you have a base rate for everyone. We also had issues with our nonprofits and charities really struggling to adjust to the fee schedules, and we didn't have a place for them. They're not really institutional, and we moved them to commercial. They're not really commercial either. And so this resolution simply creates a nonprofit line allowing churches and charities to have their own rate that better fits what they do in the nonprofit sector. We are trying to be responsible as a board and responsive to the various needs. We had the library come and speak today. We're looking into that. We've instituted an appeal process. We understand that it is difficult and painful. That said, please understand the position we are in. The federal government is saying you must spend $250 to $300 million to fix this. So that's where we are at. So this motion simply creates a line for churches and charities, nonprofits, at the rate schedule of a $20 base fee and a $10 user fee. And just be aware that as we make these adjustments at the end of the year, we're going to have to, do some adjustments again. But we're trying to get everybody in their proper category and a fair usage and a fair fee system, so that we can do this task that the EPA has mandated us to do. So with that, I make the motion that the resolution is introduced.
All right. Is there any commissioner that would like to comment? Since this is an introduction, there's not really any action items for it, to my knowledge. Is that correct, Mr. Retz? Okay. So we got a motion to introduce. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Selvey seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hearing none opposed, motion to introduce Resolution 2024-02 passes. So this will probably come up on a future agenda, and we'll also have to do some advertisement for a public hearing. Mr. Retz will basically take care of that for us. So, thank you. Moving into additional board topics, we'll just go down the line here. Mr. Clark, any additional board topics?
I have none at this time, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. Overton?
Just want to express my appreciation to the board, and to our staff. We are going through tremendous adjustments and changes. It is not a small lift, and I appreciate the responsiveness and attention to detail. And I think we're navigating this space the best that we can, and I appreciate everyone's good heart and good faith efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Selvey?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
And nothing to add today, thank you.
I'll just add my usual. We appreciate all the hard work that, our staff puts in, that they're going out there doing things safely. Obviously, we've already acknowledged Mr. Jones and his staff today. It's 160 employees doing tasks as, varied as mopping the floors at the water pollution control facility to our district engineer, redesigning parts of our system. It's big, it's complicated, it is expensive. We are basically mandated to do most of the actions that we take, be that in the form of picking up trash, which is paid through taxes, or, providing our sanitary services. We don't do anything lightly, but we do want it to be safe and professional and done with a high standard for excellence. And I appreciate our department heads, working toward that standard of excellence, and everybody that goes out and represents Muncie Sanitary District on a daily basis. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I will second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, we're adjourned until our next meeting on Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Thank you, everyone.